Hello and welcome to News and Views. I'm John Banville. Our guest this week is Senator Joe Robach. Senator Robach, thank you very much for being here today.
Great to have this opportunity, John, and be back here and be in the Capitol and in studio.
Recently, Governor Cuomo released his State of the State, which is basically, it operates largely like a blueprint on what he wants to do for the upcoming legislative session. I was wondering what your impressions were of the State of the State and how you feel that going forward, if that's the plan that you support.
Yeah, let me say that the governor gave a somewhat spirited State of the State message this year. He certainly covered a lot of ground. Something that stood out to the forefront was at the beginning of the speech was a focus specifically on the upstate economy, which I thought was good. He talked about the potential of promoting tourism outside of New York City as well, perhaps giving people something to vote on the usage of casinos is a tool. He had an education piece, which much of it focused on trying to expand not only the number of days kids are in school, but also the length of the school day, as well as potentially bringing in wraparound services to try and improve graduation rates and performance in schools, which was interesting. And then he also had a very vigorous social agenda, touching on some issues, women's pay equity, campaign financing, criminal justice issues as well. So it was pretty comprehensive. As always, oftentimes the merit or how well it's going to be perceived or what it will do is balanced by the details as well as the implementation of what's in that speech.
Let's go over some of the components of that speech. For example, you cited the upstate component of the State of the State. Can you go into a little detail and tell our viewers what your thoughts on the upstate component are?
Absolutely. And, let me say this. I liked it very much that the governor started out the speech with exactly, we are coming off 2 budget years of not only not raising taxes, but actually lowering income tax a little bit for people earning between $50,000 and $150,000, and that we had shut down deficits without increasing taxes and fees and spending. And I feel that's very important because my job is to listen and respond to what people tell me in my district. And clearly, I get the sense in every part of my district, urban, suburban, you name it, people feel that they are taxed to the limit and don't want to see more taxes and fees. I think that's accurate to say that. So I'm glad to see the governor said, even prior to introducing his budget, that he's going to try and stay that course. I will do everything I can to join him in making sure that really happens for our mutual constituents. The other very big piece and thing that I hear about tremendously is jobs in upstate New York, the opportunity for not only adults who may be downsized from large companies, but also wanting to keep their children who are graduating from colleges or looking for employment in our area. No different than me. I would be very saddened if any of my 3 children had to leave the area to get employment. And the governor, which is unusual, I know this sounds funny, but specifically said, here's a plan that we're going to have for investment, and this is coming off of, very happy to be appointed by the governor to sit on the Economic Regional Development Council, where the Finger Lakes area got the largest award of any area, almost $100 million for a myriad of different projects, but not only key investments for public-private partnerships, and investment in our universities and technologies, but the governor's now saying he'd like to do something further on capturing that technology transfer. Much of what's created at U of R, RIT, Brockport, Geneseo, St. John Fisher, Nazareth College and making at least a part of that development of that product or the manufacture of whatever it might be, if it's medical, who knows what it might be, in our area as well, not going to somewhere else because that's where they go because there's venture capital or it's more well known for that region of the state for whatever that action item might be. I think that makes all the sense in the world. We have a very trained workforce. We are very high on innovation and creation in a lot of areas. Let's even keep the next set of jobs associated with that innovation here in the Finger Lakes, Rochester area, if we can. I thought that was very good. He continued to talk about investments in food, which is a growing jobs in food between Ledestri, Constellation, Cadbury, Wegmans, very, very big, very, very large, continue to grow that. He also talked about agriculture, growing that, which I think is a good thing, and cited the recent yogurt plant, which was developed just to the west of Monroe County, where that's not only going to help the jobs at that plant, but that's also going to help surrounding farmers where all the milk will be produced locally and other things too. So this was one of the first times where there seemed to be somebody really specifically saying, in addition to these economic development councils, they get it that things are different for upstate New York, and what can we do to promote that? I think that can only bode well if we can get some of those things to come to fruition. Then, of course, off the budget, I think the policies we set are important too. That may be a little bit more the legislature's job, especially those hailing from upstate New York, which I do proudly. The other thing I should mention to people too, because people are very concerned about jobs, he talked about tourism, and I believe the number the governor used said 80 million people visit the downstate area annually. So our whole state is, just under 20 million people. That's almost 4 times the amount of our whole population coming in and out. He wants to have a plan to promote upstate New York, not only for its natural resources, culture and museums, but try to get those people to even move beyond New York City, maybe spend more time in New York. He also had talked about putting together a package that people would get to vote on, which I'm a big believer in initiative and referendum to try and maybe utilize casinos also as one tool in trying to get people to come upstate New York, travel, increase not only traditional tourism and visits, but also convention business and other things in our upstate cities and regions as well, which I think could be good and beneficial. But again, we talk about a lot of areas. People speak to us about a lot of things, from individual help to a myriad of issues. But what I probably hear more than anything is, a lot of families are having to tighten their belts. A lot of businesses are, please don't raise taxes and fees. And then also we hear, please do whatever you can to help the economy so I can either preserve my job, move forward, continue to do well, or find new opportunity for not only myself and my children. I hear that from men and women across my district constantly. So that first part of what the governor spoke of, I thought was the most important.
Well, that's actually, it builds on what you raised, of what you've been doing for the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Did the governor deal with the issue of educating our children in any meaningful way, any substantial changes over what they've done in the past?
The governor did highlight in the State of the State that New York, in fact, does spend a considerable amount already better than the average in the country. I think it's almost like $7,000 above the average in our country, which I think is about $9,000 per student. Yet, we all want a better graduation rate and a better result, especially in certain school districts. Some of the urban areas, very, very tough. So he had highlighted the concept and idea, which I certainly think is a good one, is extending both the school day time and maybe even the amount of days we're in school. I think that in like New York is like 167 days kids are in school out of 365, where a lot of other countries, I believe he put a slide up that said, I think Japan was approaching 200 days. Other European countries are more like in the 180s. And he did also highlight, which is very true, people have talked about this for a while, that the whole school year calendar was based on many, many years ago when most people derived their livelihood from farming. And on the agrarian calendar, which people literally wanted, especially older children, to come back and work on the farm. We literally do not have that anymore in society. Even people who do farming or family farming are now a little bit more commercialized, do it very differently. So it does make sense. We know we have to compete globally. We want our kids, our businesses to be on the cutting edge and benefit the rewards of that come with those jobs, technology, all that. So that made a great deal of sense to me. And I know that at least in the city school district, Superintendent Bulhan Vargas has spoken about that very often, that he'd like to see a longer day. Again, now we're all waiting to see what those details will be, how that will be accomplished. And that may happen in a separate bill, or it could happen via the state budget with some appropriation to handle that, or put the resources in place for accommodation of those longer hours and days.
Just to clarify for our viewers at home, the state of the state really is kind of a blueprint, and then very often when the governor introduces his budget, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road, if you will, where he sees if he can put these various components together in a way that the legislature can act. As I said, we discussed the fact that he didn't want to raise taxes, that he wanted to make sure that there were, tax cuts for businesses, things of that nature. And I believe the governor is talking about expediting the budget process itself. Isn't he talking about introducing that early?
Right. I hope they do. People that know me and have followed my career in government, I believe the legislature should be sequestered if the budget isn't done on time. I understand people have strong passions and opinions. That is democracy. But you know what? You have to compress that time. People rely on programs from school districts, local governments, not-for-profits, even some businesses. And so it just makes all the sense in the world, whatever tough choices we have to make them in a timely fashion and have that budget done by April 1st. So I always do applaud any governors, anybody who thinks we should have the budget done on time. And I kind of reject some of my New York City colleagues in the assemblies always said, it's not the timeliness of the budget, it's the content. That's foolish to me. If you take that to its fullest extent, that logic, we never have a budget done on time because everybody never agrees on every penny, every cent, everything attached to that. So the governor set up these parameters, put some ideas out there. Now we await the specifics of the budget. And as you suggested, I think we owe it to all the constituents of New York, especially my district, to try and get that budget document done as good as possible, but also in a timely, open, and transparent fashion. And I hope we do that again this year. We've done that now for several years in a row, and hopefully we'll continue on that track.
Senator Robach, I want to thank you very much for your time and for discussing the state of the state with our viewers. And I hope to have you back on our program to see how the legislative year progresses. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.